netbooks running Google's Android. Intel shows off new mobile internet devices. And we've got the news from E3. All that and more on this week's World Tech Update. Welcome to World Tech Update. This week we're coming to you from Taipei and the annual Computex exhibition. It's a chance to catch up on everything that's new in the PC industry. A little later on, my colleague Nick is in Boston with all of the news from the E3 gaming conference in Los Angeles. But first, here in Taipei at Computex, netbooks have been big news this year. Among the new netbooks on show were many based on NVIDIA's Iron platform. Iron pairs an NVIDIA graphics chip with Intel's Atom processor to bring richer graphics and more powerful multimedia processing to low-cost PCs. In this demonstration, a movie file is being encoded for playback on a Walkman. The Iron platform uses the parallel processing power of the graphics chip to get the job done in 1 minute and 23 seconds, while the Atom chip alone took over 6 minutes.
We believe that when a consumer shells out $300 to buy a PC, they don't say to themselves, I didn't pay very much for a PC and I deserve a lousy experience. I believe every consumer who buys a PC expects that PC to work like every other PC. And so what we decided to do was we created the Ion GPU to be mated up with the most affordable and the lowest powered CPUs to create the CPU, GPU co-processing architecture. And between these two processors, we would be able to enable and deliver a really delightful experience, whether you're playing games, streaming video, or wanting to create some home movies yourself.
We also got a chance to see prototype PCs running Qualcomm's new Snapdragon processor. The chip will compete with Intel's Atom in the mini laptop space and includes a 1 GHz ARM processor core. That means PCs based on Snapdragon won't be able to run Windows, but they will run Linux or a variant like Google's Android. Several prototypes were on show, including a version of the ASUS ePC and reference designs from Taiwan's Compal and Inventec. The ASUS ePC is running Android, but a day later ASUS didn't want to talk about it. The computer isn't on show at its booth, and when we asked ASUS chairman Johnny Shi, he didn't have much to say.
You may have seen the devices, I think, from the Qualcomm's booth, but actually I think this is the company decision so far. We would not like to show this device. Okay, that's what I can tell you so far.
Acer showed off a prototype of its Aspire 1 netbook with Google's Android mobile operating system. It could be out next quarter, becoming the first Android netbook available worldwide if Acer can beat some rivals. The computer is also the first Android prototype based on the Intel Atom processor. Android doesn't support Intel's x86 instruction set, so Acer worked with a Taiwanese Linux company called Inside Software to move the software over to the Intel chip. Acer didn't disclose specific pricing, but said that it would be slightly less expensive than an Aspire 1 netbook with Windows XP. The machine might be available through cell phone companies.
We developed this roughly about 4 to 6 months, and during this period of time we showed some carriers about this.
They're interested?
They are highly interested in that.
And the first working prototype mobile internet devices based on Intel's new Morristown processor were shown off by the chip maker at Computex. Morristown is designed for handheld computers. At its heart is a more power-efficient version of Atom. Intel claims that the Morristown chip uses 1/50th the idle power of its predecessor.
We are right on track with our Morristown platform, which is our next generation, second generation, low-power architecture driven by Atom. Right? Publicly, we had said in the past that we'd be better than 10x in terms of platform idle power reduction. We increased that target to 50x reduction. We showed the silicon and the platform being ready to be able to deliver a 50x reduction through live demonstrations. So it's not just idle chat from our standpoint. It's punning on idle, right? It's real, and we're racing to get the products into the marketplace. This is a working unit, right? And we use this to, I'm not going to try to do too much with it. This one was done with EB. EB used to be called Electrobit, right? And this is a working model that we use to debug.
Now, Computex isn't just about hardware. We had some big software news from Microsoft. Windows 7, the latest version of the Windows operating system, will be launched on October the 22nd. But that wasn't the only big news from Microsoft this week. The new search engine Bing launched. My colleague Nick is in Boston and has more on that. Plus, Nick, I understand you have news on E3 as well.
Thanks, Martin. That's right. A lot of stuff going on this week. We'll start with Bing, Microsoft's new what it calls decision engine that launched earlier this week. Steve Ballmer called current search one-dimensional and said Bing will help people find information quickly and use the information they found to accomplish tasks. The software giant plans to do this by categorizing results according to best match and not popularity, and also by pulling related searches and information that's buried into a site onto the results page. Microsoft vows to display more information on the page in a more organized way than the competition.
And then with this new platform, it's more like, it's not about searching for information necessarily and bringing you to links, which is I think what Yahoo said in their press release or announcement a couple weeks ago of, the 10 blue links are gone. It's about providing you with the information that you're looking for as opposed to a link that could potentially be right or potentially be wrong.
Bing includes quick previews when you hover over links and videos, and also a travel section to search for flights and hotels. Let's now move on to the E3 Game Conference in Los Angeles. A ton of news from the big three, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony. Microsoft unveiled its Project Natal, which will allow a gamer to control games with just body movements and no controller. Microsoft claims to have accomplished this through a motion sensor that can track a person's body movements in 3 dimensions with no additional equipment. Voice command is also part of the prototype, where gamers can speak commands rather than clicking buttons on a controller. While it could be impressive if it works as advertised, Microsoft hasn't announced a release date for the prototype. On the other hand, Sony is promising motion tracking technology next year, in fact. While similar to Nintendo's Wiimotes, the Sony controllers have integrated visual motion tracking through the use of a Sony webcam accessory already available on the market called the PlayStation Eye.
What I have in my hand here is a prototype of a new controller. Its final look will change, so I want to stress this is an engineering prototype. But it has a variety of buttons and internal motion sensors, but its most distinctive and cool feature is the glowing sphere on the end that the PlayStation Eye can track.
While the controllers still aren't quite finished, Sony is promising a release date in the second quarter of 2010. Sony also announced its newest handheld game system called the PSP Go. What sets it apart from its predecessor is the removal of its universal media disk drive and the inclusion of 16 gigs of built-in flash memory. To accommodate the lack of disk drive, Sony also announced 2 new online download services, one for movies and one for games. The PSP Go will be available in the US on October 1st for $250 US. Last up is Nintendo, and while it didn't have any blockbusters, the company did introduce some new games and products this week. One of them is the Wii Fit Plus, an update to the original with 6 new strength and yoga activities and the option to structure exercises in any order. It will be available in the 3rd quarter of this year. And to go along with exercising, Nintendo's president announced the Wii Vitality Sensor.
People would be able to use the product we are developing with this Wii Vitality Sensor to achieve greater relaxation.
Unfortunately, there was no demo of the prototype. For the company's DSi, it announced several new games, and also beginning this summer, users will be able to upload photos shot on the DSi directly to Facebook. And now it's back to Martin in Taipei to close out the show. Martin?
Thanks, Nick, and that's it for this week's World Tech Update. Come back and join us again next week, where we'll have more news from Computex, plus, as always, the rest of the week's technology news. From everybody at the IDG News Service, I'm Martin Williams. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next week.